the September 8th, 2022 Planning Board session to order. May we have a roll call? Please, Gloria.
Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty is absent.
No, he's present by Zoom.
Oh, yes, sorry. He is here. The Secretary is here. Board Member Catalinato.
Present.
Board Member Mutu.
Present.
Board Member Fulham.
Present.
And Board Member Neely is not.
He's
No,
present,
he's
he's
right
right
here.
there.
Oh,
Okay. Please join in for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Gloria. Okay. So, do we have any minutes,
we
Gloria?
do June 23rd.
June 23rd minutes. Do I have a motion to approve, to accept?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by
Second.
George. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? So we're going to, Janice is a bit late. We'll be a bit late, so we're going to move right on to Ocean Road. Claire, that's your,
Yes, this was originally supposed to be a,
can you move the mic in front of you? And what's the number in the packet?
13. It starts with the aerial. In this case, it was supposed to be a decision on the lot line modification, but the applicant's representative asked for an extension for 2 weeks to consider some issues. So so this would be an action to extend it for 2 weeks.
Until 22nd?
September 22nd.
Extension to September 22nd. Motion?
Motion.
Motion by George,
Second.
second by Gloria.
Yes.
All in favor? Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor.
My notes say this was approved. Did something happen? I'm sorry, I was trying to find the page. I didn't hear you.
Oh, the notes say it was approved?
That was in the packet. I made myself a note that it was approved. Did I misread that?
Action deadline?
Yes,
It was to consider a lot line modification.
yes.
Yeah, so instead of that resolution, your consideration is going to be an extension until September
Okay.
22nd. Okay?
Okay.
The next one, JSC Real Resources, maybe that is the reference to something that was approved. That was approved conditionally.
Okay, this is a discussion of the town engineers, which we just got. So what page is this?
That's 17. It starts with the aerial again.
Okay, if we want to give us some background on that, Claire?
Sure, this is a little bit, I've been bringing myself up to date because this was originally Jackie Fenland's project. This is an application off of the, originally the Sophia Place lots, and so you transfer development rights into this parcel. So at the time of the approval, you wanted to have the amount of fill re-reviewed by the town engineer because it's kind of in a hole. I think this next plan shows it better. I'm going to turn it to. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here.
Was this an area where there had been excavation?
Right, exactly.
And so, and then to the west of it is this steep slope?
Correct,
Okay.
right. And so that, there was a full discussion. I was present at the time. Jackie was facilitating it, but I was present at the time. You were concerned about, A, keeping the vegetation natural, because it is aqua protection, and pine barrens.
Pine barrens.
And so not disturbing any further vegetation, but also concerned about adding too much fill, which would cause some escarpments or things like that. So I think this is a good balance. This is the town engineer, and I'll read his comments through.
Please.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Mike from InterScience is here. He'll speak to the applicant's plan. Oh, and John, sorry. Hi. So a referral was made on August 24th. They came back. He describes the project, and he has some updates to the SWIP, which is 1 to 3. He recommends, which is the big recommendation, is providing additional fill on-site so the elevation of the lots are higher than the driveway. As drawn, the proposed site will flood during heavy rain events since the proposed driveway will act like a dam. So do you want me to go back to the plan to show you what he's talking about? I think George understands. But it's where this common driveway here, which is shown on the plan, is a little bit higher than this lot and then this lot. I think this lot is pretty good. I think it's pretty even here. But this would be brought up about another 1.5 feet, this one about a foot, and then this one probably can remain the same, just so that there's not, it rains here, and then the driveway acts like a dam where the water's running down here, and it becomes a failure. So I think it's reasonable. We've relayed this to the applicants, and then this would be approval of this plan with the additional fill brought in.
But the engineer has not indicated clearly on what lot, if he wants 2 feet of soil, on lot 2, what he wants.
He just wants it to be even with the driveway. So if the driveway calls for, I'm just going to say, whatever elevation it is, he just wants that even.
He doesn't want to specify that in his report?
Yeah, that's easily can be done. And we're going to easily, we can do that when you approve the plan, because you will be approving the plan. It'll be just that it's
Okay.
even with the driveway at this specification.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So does Mike want to speak to this,
Or John? Yeah.
or John?
Hi, it's John Bennett, the applicant. Mike is with me, and Mike has had conversations with the engineer. I think just in terms of filling up the factual gap, I think on the north lot, it's about additional 2 feet, and on the center lot, it's about an additional 1 foot, and none on the southerly lot. But if this is what the town engineer wants, that's what we'll give you. I mean,
Wait, say that again, John. 2
I said if
feet?
this is-
2 feet on the west, just
it's approximate, about 2
Approximate.
feet on the north,
north,
a foot on the center lot, and,
center?
no additional fill on the southerly lot. But, I mean, the town engineer is here for a reason, that's his advice to you, and then
Okay.
I think unless you're saying something that's demonstrably inaccurate, you should rely on his advice. I
Okay.
mean, obviously, our client doesn't want to pay for the extra fill, but I'm not about to hear and say that you should ignore the town engineer.
Okay, good. Any other
I
questions?
mean, I've found out through the course of many town engineers that I shouldn't try to do that, right, George?
At your own peril, John.
Okay, any questions?
So we just wanted to
Thank
bring
you,
it
John.
to you before we approve that final plan. So we'll have him draw up that plan to meet the specs.
Okay.
And that was what you'll approve before signature.
Excellent. Thank you. So there's no vote on this, no, we just discussed it?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, great. So you'll just deem that the plan part of the satisfaction?
So that you'll develop a plan, we'll approve it, and we'll sign the plans, right? Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't feel the need for an amended vote on it? If you don't, if you do, if you don't, you don't, you don't.
I'd rather have a
there's no
plan
vote.
to vote on.
Yes,
That the town
so would we.
engineer has said, oh, this meets our specs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cleaner that way, in my view. Okay, great.
Thank you. Welcome, Janice. You're on. Come sit. How are you?
Just done? We're just discussing.
Like 10 minutes?
Copy of the.
Yeah, yeah, your report.
Something's up.
How are you?
Things good, thank you.
Have a-
It's so funny. Love it.
Staycation.
Not complaining.
Much of one, but
Stayed
Well,
home
you were away from the office.
and got your to-do list
exactly.
done.
Um,
Okay.
So we don't need to adopt the report?
No, it's just a discussion.
you can if you want to. You're talking about this housing plan?
No, no, no.
No.
It was
Oh, I'm
something-
sorry,
No, no,
excuse
no,
me.
no, no.
The one we had
It
before.
was just a discussion, and we want more specifics in it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant what I'm here for.
Janice, your the town board referral for the housing plan.
Yes, so I was here a number of weeks ago, and Mike watched the meeting and took notes. I had some notes, and we crafted this resolution, and we think it captured what you were saying, but I want to make sure that we get everything, all your points that you want to make to the town board before they adopt the housing element.
Okay, want to go
So,
over, Janice?
the findings are basically that you received the referral.
I'm sorry, Janice, what page is this? Do we have it in our packet?
No, it's not.
Claire, is this in the packet?
I'm sorry, your housing
The resolution? Was it
It didn't make the packet because it went out on Friday.
Can somebody make some copies?
It's okay.
We
As long as you guys
absolutely
have it.
can, yeah.
Great, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I should have brought some with me.
Jackie, I apologize. I had some audio problem. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Dennis?
I had an audio problem, so I'm just checking. Thank you.
So I'll just read the findings to you
Okay.
until we get more copies. So it says, whereas the planning board received a town board referral to consider the housing plan as an updated element of the 99 comprehensive plan, and whereas the housing plan addresses critical questions on the town's housing issues, including key demographic trends, the challenges facing Southampton, the steps that can be put into place, and the proposed community housing fund. We should say proposed CPF.
CPA,
Yeah.
take out community housing fund?
Well, no, we could say that, but just CPF, Community Housing Fund, right?
Okay.
And whereas the objective of the housing plan is to integrate action items for consideration into the town's comprehensive plan that may guide development, land use, and other actions if found to be in the interest of promoting community housing throughout the town. And then Mike wrote now therefore, but that's wrong too. It should say and. Whereas the planning board reviewed and discussed the plan at your meeting on July 14th. And whereas after consideration, you offer the following recommendations. The first one is the town board should consider additional staff to support the implementation of the adopted plan and consider using CPF funding to augment and stabilize the cost of said staff. Is that?
Yeah,
There's
that's,
that.
yeah,
Very
we were
important.
very clear about that.
Two, the town board should consider adding additional language to the plan, including, first bullet point, a matrix listing recommended action items in the plan. Second bullet, prioritizing said list of recommendations, so we can understand their, immediacy. Third bullet, incorporating the interim use of the Stony Brook Southampton campus. I'm not sure what we meant by that. Was that just about providing additional housing there?
I don't even remember that.
I don't
Yeah, I
either.
think
I
I
think you
mentioned
mentioned
that because, there's like derelict buildings there that used to house many people. And so I think, that should be considered. It's kind of the elephant in the room.
So would you like to say, I think it, maybe you want to say incorporating the interim use for dormitory style housing or for additional housing? Would you want to qualify that statement? Not just incorporating the interim use, but saying incorporating
Well,
it.
wouldn't that need permission from?
For hospital staff, should we say, is it only for doctors and people
I
who
mean, I
work in
think
the
I would take it one step back to say, consider coordination and mutual investment with the state on bringing those units up to standard and code to accommodate workforce housing.
Yeah.
The town can't do anything
Like
with that.
prioritize that.
All right, so how about this? Coordination and mutual investment with New York State to use existing dormitories
I mean,
for
they're
interim
not-
housing.
Yeah, I guess.
To
Refurbish or renovate.
renovate / use existing dormitories or interim housing. How about that? Good?
Do we need interim?
I don't know if you need interim.
We don't need interim.
Well, I'm
For housing.
questioning, I'm questioning whether, well, I
Workforce.
guess we're coordinating with the state because I'm not sure that that they're going to allow.
How about just consider,
hospital still moving
consider
The
coordination?
hospital's still moving?
That's even better, because
Yes.
we're recommending this to the town board.
Yeah, so they should
So
consider
coordinating
coordination and
with New
mutual
York
investment
State.
with New York State to renovate, use existing dormitories for workforce housing
At Southampton, Stony
Yeah.
Brook,
at S.
South Stony Brook Southampton campus.
Yeah,
But
okay,
then
good.
Ultimately,
Good?
we have to do it, so it would just be.
Good, that's great.
Okay,
Identifying the types of housing needed, and then it says agricultural, restaurant, et cetera.
just identify the types of housing
Yeah, that there would
needed.
be.
The plan
that
should
was mine too,
identify.
That there's some sort of needs assessment is required, because we're looking at one plan that said, oh, it would be better if we had 2 workforce housing units here, but maybe not, because who are you trying to recruit? There's like a mass exodus of planning staff going to work in CPF because it's in Hampton Bays and they don't want to travel. If we have the right kind of housing to get the staff that we need, in the places that we need in Southampton Town, and sometimes those are professionals with families and
Okay.
require a larger
You know,
house.
I read through much of the report, just a couple of months ago, of course. But I think one thing I found in that report was that they did a good job identifying, the number of people we need, the number of housing units we need, but there was no attempt to match, we need this amount of units in Watermill or Bridgehampton or Southampton. So
Geographic areas. Mhm.
geographically match where
Okay,
you
make
need the
that
housing,
another-
and try to target to provide housing units in those areas for.
So geographically
So-
and demographically,
Yes, right.
based on the workforce needs of the region.
Okay.
My question with that, though, is when you start talking about, workforce needs in terms of occupation, are you not then creating preferences which are not allowable by, fair housing?
Well, the question is, a bigger question is, if you're using CPF local money, is there such a restriction after all? Because if we're
Yeah,
actually
I don't
putting
think
money
there-
into it, I
Question.
don't think we
There
get
is.
around that restriction,
Yeah.
but you might want to ask
You
that.
can- you
Well, let's
can or
ask that as a
cannot.
question, is
You
does
can-
CPF,
you don't need to restrict.
using
You can
CPF
restrict.
money, does,
Okay,
using
because it was
C-
only 9, and I hate that, I wanted there to
Okay.
be 10. So, I'm glad. So we'll add
Does-
one more.
Does the use of CPF money restrict preferences, occupational preferences?
Occupational preferences, yeah.
Eliminates the restriction that you have.
Eliminate.
that
Well, and
you
I
have.
think if it's substantiated, that was the point that I was making, is that some type of needs assessment should be done
First.
with the businesses to identify who are you trying to recruit. If you've had people that were viable candidates and they didn't take the job because of housing, what were they looking for? And, get a better idea of,
Of what you need. A
What you
needs
need.
assessment is really important, that's really good.
Well, we had one, but it's not robust enough, so you're
Should
sort
be
of saying,
detailed enough.
enhance the needs
detailed
assessment
needs
Yes.
assessment.
with more
Detail it.
detail.
Yeah, because, it may be that,
Especially geographical components and geographic.
Which includes
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so I would say as a main bullet, it should say, the plan should enhance the needs assessment with more detail, such as identifying the types of housing needed, along with a geographic match for specific hamlets, is what we're
Okay.
trying. Does that sound right?
That's great.
Yeah?
Okay. Okay, cool.
And
Then
three?
number 3 says the town board should consider potential partnerships with private banking institutions.
Wait, I'm sorry, can we just back up to the last one?
Sure.
Geographic match and perhaps labor needs?
Well, that would be the first one.
That was
think
the
that's
needs
the-
assessment with
Needs
more
assessment.
detail for labor. I guess that's what you were
Yeah.
trying to draw out.
Yeah.
So let's be clear, labor needs. Identifying types of housing needed in terms of labor, workforce, type of workforce. I mean, everybody will say, how do you do that exactly? Would we do it by sector, by industry?
Well, in proximity of a hospital,
Well, I think-
you may need
Yeah, I'm not-
more
I'm
nurses
not-
and.
yeah.
Well, like, all these
I'm not sure
businesses are
we can do
registered
that.
through
That's too-
Suffolk County, and,
Yeah.
there's got to be a list, and then you could survey those people by mail, by phone, there's
You can
companies
work
that
with
do
the
that.
Chambers of Commerce, you can work with the Business Alliance.
Sure, except
but-
that we're trying to adopt this in time for a referendum, so I mean, that seems like something we should do over time.
Right.
And keep like a living analysis, because one year you could have a lot of people needed in the school district, and another
Right.
year it could be
True.
in the
And you gotta-
restaurant industry or something.
I think because the Workforce Housing Act focuses on income eligibility, you really have to make that also your main focus. Because that incorporates that gets rid of the preference issue if you're focused on the income.
Okay.
So maybe the needs assessment is more, considering an east to west approach on this, because there's obviously a migration to more affordable cost of housing in the west, and addressing the eastern proximity of the town first, and dialing into each hamlet to see what the labor needs are and the types of housing needed based on the labor needs.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I think we are getting way into the weeds, and I think the referendum should be, this is more of an implementation next steps. If you don't want to put all the specifics into law, then it has to be changed when it makes sense that we don't do it this way anymore. And I think that's part of why the town board adopting something that is vaguer than we'd like.
Do you know the language of the referendum now? That's
Not
going
off
to
the top
be,
of my head,
I've been
but it's
try- I've been trying-
basically-
That's
I've been trying to
Important.
find it,
You know,
and I
we're-
haven't been able to.
we're like
It's very general.
league people, and that's extremely important, that the referendum language.
Well, I was asked to put
valuable.
together a pro and con.
I think it's going to say, something along the lines of, should the town enable, like, allow for the 5% or 0.5% CPF funds to be used as a community housing fund, similar to what we did for water quality for
Yeah,
the
but
20%.
very
Which is
general.
very,
A lot of the propositions on the ballot are it's deliberately vague, and people don't know what they're voting, when they're voting yes or not, no, what are they actually voting for?
Yeah.
well, I would just say that we have Kathleen Murray, who's so excellent at that language, along with, the other town attorneys. I think they
So we're
would make
just-
sure it was
just saying make sure it's
properly
clear.
vetted and worded.
Yeah, I mean, that
She's
absolutely.
done several ballot
She does a lot, and
propositions.
she's really strict about that. I've worked with her on that,
So that's
so I
just a
would
heads up.
just
Yeah.
point out that, I mean, you could say the planning board recommends the language on the ballot be very
Clear.
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 Now we're on 11.
You want
good
another
one.
one for 12?
Yeah.
You want to make it a big, 'cause
I don't mind odd numbers, but some people.
So are we going to see this? Can this could be?
It's up to you. Would you like me to wait one
Yes.
more?
No, I mean, give us,
Redo it and come back for a
please.
vote?
Yeah,
I can do that.
yep.
What I'm trying to do right now, I brought it to Suffolk County Planning Commission. We're taking their recommendations and just putting them in like an appendix. They were talking about, using model codes for solar or, true affordability, which I think is also a nice recommendation.
It's
We
absolutely.
should probably put that in there
Yeah.
if you want.
George, did you?
And then you'll
have more?
recirculate the PDF.
Yeah, I'll
so you can comment
recirculate
on it
this,
again.
but put in language about, true affordability is also linked to being able to pay your utility bills and,
Yeah.
having integrated, like EV type charging and those
Right.
kinds of things are, not just for the elite. They should be even for
That should-
affordable housing.
that- Certainly if the town's building it,
Yeah.
shame on us if they don't put that stuff in.
Okay, so incorporate sustainability features.
Yes. George, you had?
No, I mean,
You're all right?
I didn't know
That
how far
covers
we
it?
were going with this, right?
Okay.
Because I'm looking at this more so as we should be looking at this in conjunction with traffic, right? The problem we have is we can't attract people to work on the East End because of living, but also because of traffic. I work here, I turn on many candidates who, I used to invite them out here for 8 o'clock in the morning to, and they saw what the traffic was like and didn't take the job off.
Or didn't even show up?
Well, sometimes they'd show up
They
at
were stuck in
9:30.
traffic, so
Show up
they,
at 9:30, and I still interview them.
Well, and that's
So-
the point being that if we start from east to west, you can have more people that are going the opposite way.
So, I'm looking at saying, what we should be aiming to do, if possible, is to avoid having a plan for affordable housing, but the need is out east, but we're putting everything out west,
Exactly.
right? So some way to find
It
that
should
balance
be-
between providing the housing where the need actually, the matching the needs to the housing type.
Near the employment centers. The workforce housing should ideally be near the employment centers, whether it's a hamlet center or a village center or,
And near
the
public
hospital
transportation.
And public, right.
Right.
And it does say that in the plan. I would say that. I would say that. But, okay. So I will kind of, and if you have any
Riddle
other
around.
thoughts,
You'll come back.
email it, but I'll come back for a
Great.
vote at the next one.
Thanks.
Great.
When do you need the
Thanks for your time.
comments?
Thank you.
When do you need the comments on that?
I'll put it on the next agenda and before the meeting. So I'll write it in an email. Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
No action.
Janice.
Appreciate
Okay.
it. Good luck today.
Thank you.
Okay, is Anthony, you're here, right? Whispering Oaks? And just give us the page number in the packet. I know, but we're so young.
22. So you might recall, this is 63 Glenwood Lane in the village of Sagaponack. This is the second lot to come in for the clearing. You might recall a request came in to eliminate the clearing. We coordinated with the village. The village then said, we would like to see the 35%. Board agreed, and they did one for another lot in the subdivision. We discussed it. We made all the referrals, got the same comments back, and So they're just looking for another, the second approval, which would allow the covenant to be amended, and that allows a 35% clearing, consistent with the APOD. And that's basically what the reso says, subject to the legal documents being reviewed by the attorney. And,
Are we keeping track of how many there are of these? I know
yeah, well, this is the second one, so that I know.
Is it
So,
only the second? I
Yeah.
thought there might have been more.
they'll be coming.
Any question?
So we're increasing the standard to match Sagaponack.
No, the Village of Sagaponack has no clearing restrictions, because when they went over to the village, they didn't adopt them. But the subdivision in question was in the town at the time it was approved, so the clearing restrictions were imposed, which set them at 25% or 20% it was. Then when the APOD regulations came into effect, the percentage that would have been allowed on these properties would be 35%. Then the village took over, and, so
They didn't care about clearing restrictions.
they didn't care about they didn't adopt the APOD regulations. But the village, in coordinating with them, did say, rather than eliminate the clearing restrictions altogether, which is what was requested, we're just going to make the clearing restrictions consistent with what APOD allows. So while we limited it during the subdivision to 20%, they're asking for the 35%. So they're not asking for clear cutting the property,
And
just,
we've done that on properties within the town. not
yeah, and we've done it
outside.
routinely
Where
before.
they-
Provided it was a subdivision that came in
Or
with clearing
way
restrictions
before
prior to
APOD,
APOD,
yes.
yep.
So this is consistent.
This is consistent, for sure.
Okay, motion to accept this?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor. Okay,
Just,
Jeff?
let's see here. Number 8, 911 Flanders LLC is just an extension of the secret action deadline
To?
until, right now, September 22nd,
9:22.
9/22.
We have an
Motion?
email from him, Anthony?
Yes.
Motion from that extension by Craig, second by
Second.
Gloria, and all in favor. Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor.
You sure? Okay.
Are you doing yours, Anthony? Is that what you're doing? You didn't tell me that. I'm going in order. So Jeff is up next.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize you were doing that. So we will let.
Jeff, you have a covenant at number 5.
Number 5, which is located on page 26. We have a request for a covenant amendment with respect to a common driveway specifications. This is a 2-lot subdivision named William and Agnes McMorris, filed back in May 4th, 1989. Those covenants specified the material for the driveway to be asphalt. The applicant is requesting that the material change would be changed to porous gravel, which would offer some more, make the driveway a little bit more permeable. It's also, the property itself is also located in a stormwater management area, which will help with rainwater runoff. The applicant submitted a common driveway plan August 16th, 2022, revised again originally submitted June 28th, revised submitted August 16th, which was also approved by our town engineer. I have a copy of the map. I'll bring one up for you so you can see visually. There we go. The properties are located at 99A and 99B Ponquag Avenue in the hamlet of Hampton Bays. Zoom in for you.
Now, did you say that the town engineer has seen and approved this current plan?
Correct. customarily referred to the town engineer. That plan was reviewed initially with some recommendations. Those changes were made concurrently, and then resubmitted August 16th for approval, which was approved by the town engineer.
So the
think-
town engineer has seen the gravel.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
But I just think that your report needs some maybe you could work with Jeff on formatting this. Yeah, I think you need to put in the engineer's report, and it doesn't say that, because a covenant amendment also requires a supermajority of this board
Okay.
in order to amend a covenant. So are there any other questions? Okay. Motion? Motion by Gloria,
Second?
second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor, so we do have a supermajority to amend that. Thanks. Claire, your Campbell Ranch.
Do you have the latest version? Okay, I'm just going to give it to Boris. If you don't mind, I'll send you the latest version. There was some changes made. I was waiting for the Ag Advisory Committee. And I can just-
So it's a staff report that's changing a little bit, or?
Yeah, the staff report changed a little bit, and then I proceeded to prepare the actual resolution based upon that.
What number are we on, please?
Oh, sure. It's number 29. I'm sorry.
Number 6.
Number
Number
6,
six,
page
Campbell
29.
Ranch.
Number 6, yeah.
But I gave you a new version. I emailed it to Dennis. I'm not quite sure you'll
Yeah,
have
I got
it.
it.
Great.
So
Thanks.
who's representing
Four
this?
pages all.
Here.
Well, we're the same, only we're all here.
It's like folding a sheet.
Big survey showing the land, which is an existing horse farm. I'm just going to give you some background here. Existing horse farm that was approved by the planning board for originally a number of horses. It was then it came to you for modification in 2017 for 24 horses and the use of the property across the street, which is also an ag reserve. And so Kieran's been reviewing it probably the whole time, right?
Yes.
The processor, under the name of Campbell Ranch. They've come to you for an additional 5 horses on the property, so including the property across the street. So those calculations are on the left-hand side on that survey. It says 30 horses, but it's going to be adjusted to be 29 horses. That's
Had to round down.
because you
Had to
can't
round down.
you can't have a half a horse, I
Yeah,
guess.
there was only like that. Had to round down.
So, and also it'd be 4 units of agricultural housing in one of the buildings, and then also some changes to the riding ring and the material, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to just identify yourself and speak at the
you could come
podium?
here.
Or you can come in the middle, yeah.
The audio is much better from this table, and you could put out your map.
Okay. Yes, so, back when, the last time I was here, Karen Pate Murphy for the current owner is Six Pond West Drive LLC. They got bought last year. And managing member is Ed Kahali. And he wanted to, fix it up. In 2017, we did do the we did get that other ag reserve that was across the street. And the way they did this subdivision, they had 2 ag reserves. One is 2.7 acres, and the other one is, I think, 19. So we could have 29 horses, but the owner wanted to sell, so we just went with 24 horses. And I think you remember reviewing the building.
Very well.
And it had kind of a blocked wall where the horses were going to be. So they had plenty of room. They got rid of that wall, and you were given a site plan. They got an architect to do, for the horse layout. So if you remember, there was kind of a wall. I think Jackie was there or whatever. And so now it's all open. And this is the building, on the plan that is Building E. So that's what they're just adding 5 more stalls. So they're not changing that building. The building next to it had a break room upstairs, but it had a 2-story high area. So that's going to be converted to 4 bedrooms with a kitchen. So that's an existing building. And as Claire noted, there was also in the back of the building, the place is so big, there were 2 isolation boxes. And,
If the horses were bad?
no, yeah, if they were sick, if they weren't paying attention.
Time out.
So now they're going to basically be, if a veterinarian comes, or if a blacksmith, to examine them. And there is in the approval not for overnight. So that way you don't have horses and people in the same area. But they do, like, horses actually get their teeth filed. I didn't, they have things that have to be done by
Especially
the vet.
these horses.
Yeah, these horses are very fancy, so anyhow, and another thing was the exercise ring. I don't know if anybody went to the Hampton Classic, but they had to get rid of the grass because they didn't do it correctly. So the latest thing is to have special footing, and it's not, and it's clear, the soil remains, the great agricultural productive soil remains, and they just put over, it's like a sand, sometimes it has cloth in it. They have different combinations, it's not as dusty, and they thought it would be safer to expand, because his granddaughter is a big rider, and that was one of the things. And then if you remember, they had these X fences, when you come up to it, around the exercise ring, it's just going to be 3 horizontal spaces, because it's safer when you're training horses, and you don't want them to think that's a jump. Some of the jumps have X's in them. So anyhow, so that's I think that's the five things. And I worked very closely with Claire. And another thing, we are going to have the latest, they're going to upgrade the septic, because they're putting, this was built, I don't know when the original was, 2011 or whatever, so it'll get the latest
IA systems.
IA
yeah.
system, which I think the Conservation Board made a comment. And that's basically it. And also, I think we have a covenant or something about, if you're going to sell the other ag reserve, then you can't have 29 horses. I think
Go
that
back to 24.
back to 24, which
I
is,
thought that made
people
more
should be aware of that, and they, because we've seen some ag reserves owned by 2 people. I think you've come across that, where it gets, messy. So anyhow, so that's
That's a good overview. Do you mind, shall I just go through the staff report quickly?
Yes, go through the
yes.
staff
May I
report.
just ask one question?
Yeah, of course.
The second ag reserve
Yes.
is only being used to calculate the number of horses
Right.
that can be on the first ag reserve. So
Yes, there's
they're
no
not-
buildings.
Okay.
There's nothing, it's just to put
Just
horses
open-
out.
It's an open field.
And I had to get a sign, and I got a sign, and it said horse crossing, and they said, no, I can't have any, it has to be international. So I ended up with a sign that says, and I got another one, so if you ever drive by, it's whatever, it's kind of fun, but, it had to be done, so.
Okay.
So Kieran did a good overview, so that's the description here, and references the plans. It's a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA. Public hearing was held on June 9th. There was comments. Neighbor concerned with the operation morphing into a commercial operation. The planning board closed the public hearing with a 10-day written comment period. The comments were, expansion of the facility will have a negative impact on my family in the residential area. Existing facility already attracts larger trucks and is noisy. Additional horses will increase noise, traffic, personnel, and animal waste. Additional 4 bedrooms increase the number of bedrooms to 5 bedrooms and is like a house, should be denied. Expansion of the facility will increase the traffic and be a safety concern to the adjacent neighbors, including young children in the area. Impact to emergency vehicles, horse farm has been misused in past, and corral breakup is for polo use. The referrals, the Planning Commission, they said it was the local determination. They recommend that adjacent property owners be notified, but we don't have an ability to put this notice covenants on those lots, adjacent property owners' lots.
They probably did that in the original subdivision.
I would imagine.
They always put ag advisory. I could be wrong, but they would always put ag.
We try to, the planning board tries to when they create ag reserves, I know, yeah.
I can check on that, but I'm sure the original subdivision, I think it was like 2000, they must have, that's when I
They
started.
must have had notice.
Started
yeah.
working here that, if you were near ag land or the airport or whatever, you had to put an ag advisory in.
Right.
So
The Department of Fire Prevention, the fire marshal had no specific recommendations, but said everything should operate per code, and they'd review it at the building department stage. Town engineer had no substantial site, so no engineering requirements with the application because there's no additional improvements. Conservation, their comments are related to the ag labor housing and to allow the additional horses. Construction is outside the town's wetlands. That's number one. Cullis Ponds, the discussion, Cullis Pond on Meek's Bay describes the water body as being impaired. And so that.
They're just notifying that, they're just a
Yeah.
notice, it's not,
Right.
this is not impacting that.
So 3 has to do with the innovative alternatives on-site system, so I was glad to hear that the applicant's willing to do that. And so we'll have that as a condition of approval that they noted on the plan. And then, so that's, the number 4 is related to the sanitary system upgrade to an IS system. Ag Advisory Committee, so I just got this morning. They requested the applicant show calculations how they arrived at the 29 horses being allowed based upon acreage. They say that it looks like they have sufficient area. So that is, we're just going to update those numbers from the 30 to the 29 for the horses, as the applicants requested. So they have sufficient area for the facility. And there's no comments from the Bridgehampton Fire District. So these are the general standards. As there's not a lot of, the construction's going to be interior and it's only the change of the riding ring, a lot of these are not to be addressed. C, obviously, the neighbors were concerned, but the planning board did a full site plan on this application, plantings and such, so a lot of that's been addressed with the
It's
original
buffered, yeah.
application.
Yes.
But I mean, can you put some detail in that so we can see it?
Yeah.
You just say discuss here.
Right, exactly. Well, I just wanted to bring, again, the public spoke about their issues, about the operation.
No, but I mean, if we're going to adopt this, we need some language in here.
So it's a fully vetted site plan that you reviewed the buffers and such.
Maybe a reference to the latest site plan shows, if you remember, there was a dirt road to New Light Lane, that's been eliminated, and there was all hedges put along the...
Fully buffered.
Fully buffered along the houses that are on New Light. They're along the ag reserve. You can't see it
No.
from the highway. And there's also an 8-foot, Conic Land Trust manages the farmland that's adjacent to the highway. They put up an 8-foot ag fence, which is great, because nobody can jump that high. But there's all facing the highway, there's all trees. If you drive by, you can't see. And then the neighbors on the other end, there is tree rows. So it's really buffered, and the front is just open area. So there really
So
isn't.
are you going to reference the site plan? How are you going to, what language are you using?
Yeah, so as referenced in the site plan and the original approval from 2011, the planning board considered full buffers to all neighbors and presentation of the property.
It's also shown on the existing plan. It has all the tree buffers.
Well, you're actually not changing anything, you're just,
No,
Right, you're not
we're
changing
taking
this.
existing to have, the
Yeah.
workers live on
you move
site.
it just inside.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll mention that too, the no changing, fully buffered, as reviewed prior. D is the site is suitable for the location of the operation. That's been discussed in a special exception. The character, obviously the use isn't changing, but it's not near any sensitive receptor. Again, the use is not changing. It's just an expansion with the additional 5 horses. So that's met. G is the adequate buffers, existing screening in place. I'll put similar language as what I'll put under C, under there. Curb cuts are not changing. The off-street parking's not changing. The buffers are not changing. And then the health departments, I highlighted this because they are going to do an IA system.
And we have to get health department.
and you have to get help for that. There's no outdoor sales lots, and the additional 2 sections are related, A, to the horse farm. So you go through the horse farm standards like you would have done it the first time, just to make sure all the standards are still met. In this case, I identified no additional issues except for under B. This is where I'm suggesting a covenant, because they're relying on that piece of property across the street to increase the horses to 29 feet, so it's 29 horses. If they ever sell them separately, then the horse number has to be reduced to 24. So that's what I'd like to say there.
Mayor, can you hear me? This is Dennis.
Yeah, Dennis, go ahead.
I seem to recall there's a covenant linking that small reserve that can't be severed. It has to be sold. Are you aware of anything that's recorded to that effect? Because we were concerned about that when we set up that little ag reserve. We were
Okay.
concerned that it would be severed somehow.
We could leave it
Might already
as,
be in place.
okay, we could leave it as either or. If there is one, then that would make sense, that it's already covered.
Yeah, and I'll look it up. Because that would make
Yeah, 'cause
sense.
It's a separate tax parcel here in View.
Yes, it is, yes.
Yeah, so it would be recorded on that tax parcel.
Okay, thank you. I'll look that up. That makes sense, because otherwise you just
Yeah.
have 2 acres.
Yeah, that would make sense, the 2
Can't really
acres.
do much with that.
This is why people remember what happens in history.
Yes,
Guess you
thank
could
you.
grow tomatoes.
The
Sure.
horses didn't even like to go out on that little piece. They preferred the air conditioning
Yes,
stalls that they had inside.
I live in
you?
those stalls.
So I'll put reference to an either-or situation
Okay.
there. And then C is related to the fencing. Obviously, it's being extended, the area is being extended, but that should be in conformance. And then the manure, I reiterate this again here and then in the decision itself, that should be picked up weekly, which is what's been done to date.
Yes.
And the grain, the same one, no change to the indoor riding ring, no change to the existing building. On the exterior, all work is interior improvements, no change to the parking areas. And this is related to the horse farm use. Covenants are in place, and covenants are in place for those. This is the standards for the agricultural labor housing. So this is related to the health department's approval, and this is related to what Kieran was saying, that there should be no having the horses in the building in the bottom floor overnight. So, and I just have some amendments to the building.
So we're going
plans
to
for that.
change that in the
Yeah.
plans.
Is there would there be any need for a change in how often the manure is being picked up because of more horses? I have no idea. I'm just, obviously, it's a volume issue, and,
It's a pretty big
yeah, I'm just raising the question.
receptacle, so I don't think that's an issue. And believe me, they don't want smell. It's right near their exercise ring, so.
So B is to do with the 4 bedrooms and amenities are located in the second story of the building, so it has to be located on the property, and it is. C is the placement of dwellings and group quarters shall have access to a paved driveway or street. In this case, it's a paved driveway. The standards met. D is the setback, so here it is either 200 feet from any side or rear, or 150 feet from the front lot line. The nearest one is 246 feet. There's actually more distance than that from several property lines. So I didn't identify any of the issues of the standards of site plan, the town code, so I prepared a draft resolution for your consideration, if you want to go for the resolved portion. So the first resolved would be to adopt the staff reports. The second resolved would be to allow the 29 horses, which is an increase from 24.
Excuse me, Claire, what document are you reading from?
The top
The first one. Yeah, the resolution.
Okay.
I started with the resolved at the bottom of the page. And that's to approve there's two special exceptions that you're approving in the site plan application. The first resolved, the first resolved of the staff report. The second one is the special exception for the 29 horses total. And so I just reiterate a couple of the standards from the horse farm standards, and they're here, that they kept the horses, they're kept in an open area, and there's no accumulation of manure. So this is right from the code. The third resolved is the planning board.
Excuse me, do we have to put anything in here about the fact that if that small parcel ag reserve is sold?
We can put it here. I have put it lower, and, but we can put it here. That would be, that's efficient. I put it as number 3A under the site plans, but I can move it over here. And then I'm going to put the and/or, because if it's already in place that it can't be severed, then the problem's solved.
Then it has to go back to 24 horses, 25.
That it can't be severed, that only the planning board probably could sever that easement, that makes sure those two
They have
people
to.
properties are joined together permanently.
But if they make some mechanism whereby they can, then the total number of horses would revert back, as you said, to 24.
Yeah, but as I think Dennis is saying, that the covenant, I'm sorry, the easement on the property says they have to be sold together. The two ag reserves have to be together.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's remembering that there is such an easement. Kieran,
Were these two together to start?
Even the easement
Yes.
was already covered.
I thought you
Yeah.
said-
they were subdivided together.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's very
It was a
unusual to
covenant.
see that.
Dennis is saying it was a covenant.
There's a covenant.
Right, so we can see the covenants, and the covenant would only say the planning board probably can the only person to, the entity
amend
to
that.
sever that, or to change that.
And I will look for that and get that to
Yeah.
Claire,
Yeah.
Okay.
probably within a week.
Okay,
I think you should leave that condition in, but if some mechanism comes around in the future where they will sever that, or find a way to come back to the.
It doesn't
planning
hurt
board
to
and-
put a notice on it. You know, I don't think it hurts to
Yeah.
put
No,
another
put it in-
layer
And
on it.
resolve, yeah.
Yeah.
When
So
it
even if
resolves.
future board either come back to sever that and it was done, then they have to bring it back down to 24 instead of
Right,
29.
yeah, exactly.
So you'll add that language?
Yes, I have it under 3A, but I will put it, I think it makes sense to be under the approval for the horse farm, so I'll put it up there, too. Okay? Is it okay if I move on to the 4 additional agricultural housing units to be located, for a total of 5, to be located in Building D on the second floor?
The other housing is in another building.
Yeah, you're right. I realize it doesn't sound like right. So I'll spell it out more clearly where the other unit is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So what building is it?
It's in the other building.
Got a-
Is it in-
got a specification?
It's not an E, though, right?
It's in,
It's in D.
that was,
Your isolation box, that's in D.
yeah, that's
That's
D.
D, that's the new one.
It's in C,
It's in C?
yes, because it has that stairway that goes up to the second floor,
Okay.
and that's where the trainer,
So I'm going to say 4 additional agricultural labor housing units to be located in Building
a separate-
D and
yeah.
and on the second floor, and then with parentheses, I'm going to say, in addition to the existing one in C, total 5.
yes.
Are you sure about that, Karen? Because the plans here says building D.
No, this is just building D, but there's already an existing apartment in the other building,
Which is C.
which is
Yes.
C, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll clarify that.
It's very nice.
Okay, and then this would be to adopt the staff report, which I already did up there, so I'll have to take one of those out, and then describes the application and the plans. This would be the changes to the site plan, which would be to actually note this existing sanitary system for Building D, and note the system to be replaced with an innovative alternative system. B would be to amend the allowed number of horse rotations on the site plan to reflect 29 horses, not 30.
So is that building D or C?
In,
Sanitary systems going in where the housing is?
yes,
Yeah, the
building D.
proposed, yes.
So that's building
D.
D, which we have the plans.
okay.
And this would be the note related to the covenant, the notice covenant. And then this, the changes to the building plans will note the 2 isolation boxes to become veterinarian horse evaluation areas and blacksmith work areas, and note that no horses shall be housed on the first floor of Building D overnights. And this is the notice covenant that if lot 32.20, which is the main lot, ever sold in separate ownership with lots 32.21, I'm sorry, one of them, the second one says 21, sorry. The owner is on notice that the number of horses are to be reduced back to 24.
And would require, I mean, do we say anything here about requiring the planning board, or?
Yeah.
I think it should.
I agree. And require additional planning board review. So the general conditions, I've just reiterated these from previous decisions, is the manure shall be picked up, daily. Oh, yeah, the manure
That's on the small ag
on the
reserve.
small ag reserve shall be picked up daily, yeah.
Yeah,
So the horses are going to be there, they're just not going to live there.
No, they just put them out during the day. They go across the street.
Okay.
That's why I have the sign. I had to get the sign for horse crossing.
It's their play area.
Yeah.
And then the no hourly leasing, again, this is from previous decisions, no vehicular access to the farm via New Light Lane, no horses should be housed, I just reiterated here, on the first floor of Building D overnight, only one farm identification sign, which I think there is, no dusk to dawn lighting fixtures, proposed lighting shall be reviewed, no public address system. Any grain stored on site shall be enclosed in containers. A dirt paddock located in the eastern portion shall be hosed down to prevent dust as needed, and in compliance with the ADA. And then our typical affidavit and 10 sets of plans. Any questions?
Are you going to amend this and then we'll approve it, or what's the,
That's up to the planning board and to the applicant.
you're going to check on that?
Can we just make it an or situation and approve it if there is an existing covenant?
I think she wants some language in there under C. Is that what you're concerned about, Jackie? Or
Yeah.
or that you want to check on the covenant?
Seems like there was a few modifications. Maybe we just got a clean copy with the covenant language, review
Okay.
it one more time, and then
Okay,
it'll be
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
clean
I'm
sweep.
sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said it seems like there was a few modifications that maybe we just get a clean copy with the covenant language, give it one more week, and
I
then
agree.
2 more weeks.
take a final look.
It'll be September
whenever it comes up.
22nd, and that would be an extension that has to be granted by the applicant.
Extension,
I will grant the extension.
extension to 9/22.
Thank you.
Okay.
In the name of due
Great.
diligence, thank
Yes,
you.
no, thank you. It's a big project, so.
Motion to extend Campbell Ranch to the 22nd. George, second by Gloria. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Karen. Yeah, Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, I'd like that.
These are yours, Claire.
Thank you. So my next one,
So let's see, going forward,
number 7, Bridgehampton Commons.
yes.
It's page number 45. So in this, the planning board earlier this year adopted a master sign plan, which changed the colors of the signage detail on the property, whereas units that were larger would be, could allow their own colors, and units that were smaller would have to be this golden green, which I'm going to turn in the correct direction for you. So in this case, you approved the one that's on top. Can you see that? and that was Beaver Petco. But the applicant has decided to switch the cat and the dog
Yeah.
to the right side. So it does need your approval, was approved by the ARB. So this
It looks
this is probably an
larger.
easy one.
It looks larger. Is it my perspective?
Yeah, I think it's the same size.
It's
The
the same.
sign is the same size.
Yeah, it's giving all the same specs.
Okay.
Like, we can confirm that with the applicant's representative, sorry.
On the top sign, the lower part of the logo is in line with the lower part of the P. When you move it over, it's not anchored by that, so it does have sort of an optical illusion.
It's an optical illusion.
Michael Shiano from InterScience on behalf of the applicant.
Yes.
They're exactly the same size. One of the other things that you may note is that I think that the top one was more of kind of like a rendering. You see like there's a shadow underneath it. And so that shadow is not there on the one below it, so that may be part of why there's this optical illusion. However, they're exactly the
Okay.
same size.
Yeah.
I just wanted.
Obviously can't see those little
There's no
numbers.
shadow that
Yeah.
we can see if they're.
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry.
fine. And the color, you've submitted, those are your paint chip colors, your PMS colors?
They match the master sign plan.
Okay, great, good. Any questions on it? So motion to accept? Motion by Kate, second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, thank you, 7 in favor.
Where I was in the shopping center yesterday, and there's, I want to say.
So was I.
Wait, and we didn't see each other. I think the name of the store was Anthea,
Athleta, right?
and it's a big red sign. Is that one of the, you can have bigger signs?
How's-
No. Please.
The Athleta is one of the uses that I'm actually not being asked to handle. So they're doing it on their own. They are not over 8,000 square feet, and so they would be required to follow that color combination.
I mean, it
You and
sticks
I
out
will
like.
speak after the fact.
Yes.
Yeah, it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb.
Good,
Okay.
good. Okay, good. Anthony?
Anthony, we've done 8, which is the extension on 9/11 to September 22nd. And then you have the South Canal, Southampton battery storage.
Just give me 1 second.
Page 50.
Page 50.
50.
Good. Remind the board, I have the aerial up. This is applicant, and the applicants are by Zoom. Kevin, I believe, Keith Archer, Gus Ahididi, and I believe a lady by the name of, I don't know, I can't remember, but there were a few applicants there you could let in. The board might remember, we did a pre-submission conference on this application, and then we subsequently got a formal application in. These are the 2 properties in question on the aerial. Only one is
Excuse me,
highlighted.
I don't see them up present.
If the applicants can raise their hands in the chat so that the moderator knows to let you in.
Continue
Anthony,
then.
we just have this one page in the packet?
I said, no, this was sent separately.
Send it separately.
I know, I didn't print it out. Do you have a copy of it?
I have a copy of the part 2, and I have a copy of the addendum.
And we have those?
Sure can.
Keith Archer is there, and
Does anybody on the board want to?
yes, I do.
Chair, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'll handle it.
Thanks, Steve. So this is a site plan special exception application for a battery energy storage system facility under the town's fairly recent regulations that were adopted. The two properties in question, the subject property makes up two properties. Just get this out here. Make up a total of 4.9 acres. North Road here, this property currently has a couple of existing cottages on there. Just to zoom out, Sunrise Highway over here, a LIPA substation just to the east, which this battery storage facility is proposed to connect to the LIPA substation with underground utility lines. Adjacent to the subject site, immediately adjacent to, is I believe it's the Suffolk County Department of Public Works yard over here, and then all town land to the south, and then the closest residence on the other side of North Road there.
Anything happening with those cottages, those residential units?
They're going.
They're going.
Yep. So the property is zoned R60, so this is a special exception use in the zoning district. We, back in April, did a pre-submission on this application and gave them a good report, and the applicant then subsequently came in with the formal application. I brought it to this board, actually. Previously, we deemed it incomplete, pending some information. I had forwarded, and I know it was a great deal of information, all the maps, which can be difficult to read because we're not looking at standard structures. We're looking at battery components. And an environmental assessment, an expanded one that they did, which was very, very detailed. So that was sent to you. Let me just sort of get a sense here. These are very big plans, so they're hard to utilize up here. Well, in any case, I'll describe it that you can sort of see. This is for 100 megawatt, 200 megawatt hour battery storage facility, 30 battery enclosures with 24 battery modules, and all the ancillary equipment. What you're looking around here, this box area is the development, and then much of the property then to the east will be left alone with the buffers to the north and the buffers to the south. Along the road, it meets the setbacks for the structures, and then they're showing two drainage basins on the front to handle stormwater runoff from the property as part of this project. The applicant did submit, as I said, the environmental assessment expanded form, and that's really what we wanted to go over today. Let me just bear with me here because there's a lot of stuff. So we pretty much know a description of the project here. I talk about the information that was analyzed. They submitted, we used our pre-submission conference report, the site plan and supporting materials, the EAF form they submitted, which was prepared by AKRF, a Phase 1 archaeological report, which was also prepared by AKRF, and the town's GIS data. So what I'll do is I'll go through, well, you know what, I'll go through the addendum, actually, because it goes through.
Yeah, I think
that
it's easier for me to do
that was much more
that,
helpful.
with all the substantive information.
Yeah, so you expand,
And I'll reference that as I go along. I'm going to go through the expansion.
okay,
and-
because, just,
Yeah, no, I got you. So on the part two, the first impact that they look as impact on land. So I had indicated that there would be some impact on land. Any development has some impact on land when you're clearing. In this particular case, obviously the construction activities and the build-out will alter the land patterns, but including the drainage basins. However, the use itself is a low-intensity use. It doesn't generate traffic coming in and out of the site.
Anthony, I asked prior, how much land is being cleared for the
Okay, yes,
operation? So can you identify yourselves, please, for the record? The applicant's representatives who are on Zoom, can you please identify yourselves for the record?
Gus City, Managing Director at Rhineland. I lead the development. for
Can't-
the
can't hear-
property
can't hear
at
you.
Southampton. Can you hear me now?
But can you hear him?
I think so, but if
Yeah.
you could speak slowly, because it's hard to hear.
Yep. Sure, Gus City with Rhineland Energy. I lead the development for the Canal Southampton project. And on the line, we've got APRF with Elizabeth and Kevin, who are our environmental consultants, and we've got our legal advisors as well, Keith Archer and Andrew on the line, and then the lead developer for the project, Jonathan O'Hara, who's also with Rhineland Energy, is on the line as well.
Okay, if you can up the audio, that would be helpful, because it's just barely audible.
Okay, let me see if I can remove my headset.
I think that will do it.
Can you guys just verify of the 4.9 acres, how much is being utilized and how much is being left in its natural state?
So the current, right now, we're trying to minimize the clearing to the extent we can. Obviously, some clearing will be needed, but right now, we're looking at clearing approximately 8 acres of the 4.9 acre site. So approximately 1.4 acres of the existing trees around the edges of the property will be left.
So they're clearing 3.9.
The clearing
3.58.
3.58.
So about three-quarters,
Three-quarters of the property.
just in general terms.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ed.
So what I'll do is, I
Add
think,
that.
we're going to add that to the total, and then the total amount that they're preserving. It is worth noting, the clearing of the existing vegetation, I don't know the numbers, I'm going to be honest with you, but within the center part of that property where they're doing a lot of this, a lot of that vegetation has been killed by the pine beetle. I should remind the board of that. So a lot of it is not intact. So I'll fix the impacts on the land, and we do note that the any impacts on the land can be mitigated through landscaping, and there's going to be an SWPPP required because there's over an acre of disturbance. So the stormwater management plan will have to be reviewed and approved by the town engineer.
I would also add on your explanation that an archaeological report was done, and no artifacts were found, is that true?
There's a separate section for archaeology in here, so
Okay.
we'll get to
Good.
that. And then on the second one was impact on geologic features, which is the second one in the part two. The site doesn't contain any of the identified geological features under this section of the EAF, so there would be no impacts. And then the next three are actually the impacts on surface water, groundwater, and flooding. So just as a general statement, we say that the battery storage is not expected to have any impacts on those items, and then put the reasons in here. The first one, we're about 700 feet from the Shinnecock Canal. There's no wetlands on or adjacent to the site. And obviously, we're going to have the SWPPP reviewed by the town engineer to ensure that all stormwater is contained on site so that it doesn't make its way down to the canal. And doesn't have affect adjacent properties, both during construction and post-construction. And it's also going to require the general speedies permit from the New York State DEC. So the New York State DEC is going to look at the clearing and the ground disturbance as part of their review process.
Is this a relatively flat parcel?
Yes.
Anthony, so obviously, it seems as though during normal operation, there's going to be no impact, or even during construction, very little impact on groundwater and surface water. But, we've had discussions on other applications. Like before, one of the concerns that we've had is what happens if there is a fire or incident and you end up having to throw a copious amount of water over days onto this facility to put out a thermal runaway fire. What are the impacts of any contaminants that might come out of a fire situation, and how is that going to be managed? Has there been any thought about that, given in any?
It's an interesting concept. That's a very interesting question, George. We never really had a very big discussion about fires and anything and any impacts on that. So I don't really have an answer, but if
Yes,
if-
let's ask
let's
the
ask the
applicants. Did you hear that?
You did, yes. Elizabeth, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can provide a quick overview. The basins will be there. Well, it's highly unlikely that a fire will occur, but there obviously is always the potential. There are multiple mitigation factors that can be done to slow a thermal runaway so that the whole facility doesn't go up. Some of it will be explained in an operational management plan that will be on site during the operation of the project, and we will be coordinating with the fire district to ensure that they're aware of the facility and properly trained and so forth. Should a fire occur that needs water, and John, please step in if there's any more technical expertise you can provide, but if a fire needs water to be put out, there are different opportunities to put some booms up to minimize any off-site runoff of the water contained within the site. The drainage basins will be there. The property's going to be zoned or drained and graded so that any runoff goes right to our drainage basins first and foremost. But should those start overflowing, if it's a large fire and there's a lot of water being used, there are some opportunities to put some additional equipment up to minimize any off-site runoff, especially with the proximity of Shinnecock Creek and Canal.
Are those drainage basins lined?
No, the intent of the drainage basins will be to infiltrate.
So what sort of contaminants might you expect from a fire in one of your battery enclosures, should that happen?
John, could you answer that question? My understanding is none, but John can provide more technical explanation.
Yeah, I mean, these are lithium batteries, so, any material from any building that you have that catches on fire, you're gonna have, similar carbon products. But, we can get some more details if you'd like.
Is water the appropriate
Thank you.
fire retardant for a lithium battery, or is it like similar to what would be in an electric car where you would have to add a different fire retardant chemical?
It is specific to the unit, so it could be one or the other, depending on the manufacturer's recommendation at the time.
But you'll have to provide that to us. We'll need to know that. And that's a good question, George.
It's fine, it goes into a drainage basin, but that's still leach into the groundwater
That's right.
and into the bay
Yeah.
and the canal. So, it is a contaminant
Right.
of concern.
So if there's a fire, how you intend to put it out, and with what materials?
Just maybe backtrack a little bit on the contaminants. The extent of what houses the batteries is a container, right? It's a containerized system made of steel, so there is no extent of contaminants arising from the container itself. The batteries are enclosed within another form of a casing, which is also sealed, and it's sealed in steel. Within it, obviously within the container, there's a lot of conduits, there's a lot of lines, there's plastic, but the extent of what is available in a container is no different to what you see in a house or in an electric panel. So if any fire arises in a house or a commercial building, the extent of what you're going to see is very similar to what you're going to see. So there's no contaminants. The lithium itself is not, lithium is salt, right? So there's no contamination as if it seeps through itself into the basin. So the extent of what you're going to see is going to be very minor, and it's going to be limited to the wiring, the conduits, the plastics that you're going to see within that container itself.
But we're asking about the fire retardant, what you use, okay? And we just need that information.
Right. We'll provide this information. Obviously, what John said is going to be specific to when we finalize the work with the vendors. That will fall into the operating agreement, and that will be provided with the specifics of how we're going to mitigate and what the suppression system is. it's gonna finally look like.
Right, but we're looking at impacts here, and that's, our obligation is to look at the impacts of this application. So the impacts on surface water, groundwater is an important ingredient into this analysis as to whether it's a large impact, a moderate impact, or a small impact.
If you could put perhaps the suppression aspects with all the vendors, like what the options are, just give us what that is, give what the potential impacts of that is, and then in your operating agreement, you can address specifically to that vendor what you're going to do. But at least they'll have the potential impacts of everything.
So
I
Anthony,
would
we're
also-
going to have to plug that into this.
Yeah.
No, I'm writing it all down as we're going through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think any potential disaster near surface water, not only, the Shinnecock Bay, which leads to the ocean, and the Peconic Bay with the canal right there, natural disaster or, a fire would be a major consideration of, what could happen and what are the mitigation measures of that.
Okay,
for
so
the
then
project.
another point that I'll have to look at in this will be to what extent then, not just fire, because they do have to have a fire and they do have a fire protection plan, but what if a storm comes rolling through?
Is this in the floodplain?
No, it's a small portion of the property is in the 500-year floodplain, but the vast majority is not in there. But nevertheless, this is still an island, so we see what happens when storms come.
And-
So we'll have to put that in there as well.
I would also say, as part of this fire issue, there should be a plan for how they're going to train the Hampton Bays Fire Department,
Well, I think.
because depending upon how the fire should be suppressed, they need to have, those people have to be trained and know what they're supposed to do.
Yep. So I got that down as well.
So, going back to the report, you haven't, you said no, 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 but I think that we might want to put small to medium impact here.
I mean, even the language in the report, which I can appreciate, it's not expected, but it could happen. And if it does, that's a big problem.
No, I
So-
understand.
Yeah, I think we have to go back, I would agree with you, just to back you up there, Jackie, to say yes on some of these, and just look into it.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I don't have an issue with that.
So where do we do that, Anthony?
Well,
Impacts on
let's finish going through, because my guess is you're going to ask the applicant to have me make changes to the report.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me go through it as I'm doling
Okay.
out the,
Okay, good.
writing down the notes. One of the other things that I pointed out in this section was that, as it relates to the drainage basins, as a general rule of thumb, we do prefer green infrastructure to fully, structural components and hardscapes and everything else. So we do look for that from the green, we have a whole manual on green infrastructure. So I did note that in there. But we have these other issues that we have to obviously include and work out. Same thing, obviously, then with the impact on air. I think what I'll say, and then we'll clarify, I didn't see anything in the EAF that indicated that the battery storage units generate any odors or anything like that. But I think we would have to be noting here that the battery storage use, put some specifics in there and how it doesn't generate.
Right, because I don't think we can say will not generate any offensive, I mean.
I gotcha. No, I understand, Jackie.
We have to
So-
make some reference to hard data.
Okay, so I'll do that throughout this whole report, by the
Yes.
way, so you're aware. But as it relates then to impacts on plants and animals, so we do note that it's pitch pine, oak, forests, it's not in the pine barrens, but pine barrens vegetation. A lot of it has been lost to the pine beetle infestation, but the vegetation that can be maintained on the property showed to be maintained in the buffers. But a lot of the vegetation has been lost, so a lot of landscaping is going to occur on the property.
Is the town requiring the disposition of pine beetle infested trees to be dealt with in a certain manner?
They are not. Marty, we had this discussion, Marty's office, the Environment Division will tell you, don't touch any vegetation when it dies and just leave it like a fire, what comes back after the infestation is usually a very robust understory and subsequent. However, as we also discussed, keeping dead, dry vegetation near a battery storage facility
probably not smart.
Not a
is
good
the
idea.
greatest idea. So, and by the way, a lot of what's lost in vegetation sits where the development's going to go. So that vegetation is going to be cleared out. What's going to be left is going to be the good vegetation, and it will be augmented with a landscaping plan.
We hope it's good vegetation, because this is a spreading.
You're right. Right now,
infestation.
right now, it looks okay. It looks like the infestation did what it was going to do, but.
Well, I
you never know.
think the protocol is if the trees are still alive, they're cutting them down.
Gotcha.
Because you want to get the trees and the bugs away, because they will migrate to the next
To the
tree.
next tree.
Okay. So maybe we'll have to ask for some information as it relates to that for this section
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, particularly if there's, because they're only clearing 3 point
Yeah.
whatever.
I think within the confines of their property boundary, it would be useful, because of the risk of fire, to do some, clearing of dead things
Yeah.
and fire management within the treated, the remaining vegetated areas, just to, because you're thinking about brush fires is another thing that can happen too, right?
Yeah, well, with the drought and everything else.
So your statement, vegetation that can be maintained has been incorporated into the landscaping plan. Well, that could change.
So we'll ask the applicant for some information as it relates to the extent of the infestation and specifics on
Right.
numbers. And if there's any of the living trees that are going to have to.
They have to be cleared away.
So that, we'll make sure we get that information and then amend this accordingly.
So you'll change, Anthony, whatever you have as no to,
Yeah, I'm gonna revise,
Okay.
make this according to the board's.
okay.
And then just regarding animal species, obviously, many of the animals that you'll find on this property, particularly given its current state, are going to be ones that are generally tolerant of human activity. And they do note any endangered species, none found on this property or adjacent to the property, but through the DEC documentation that are found in the area. So if on DEC referral, we have a long-eared bat situation or anything else, they impose then time periods that clearing could occur. And it's acknowledged, by the way, in the environmental assessment they did. So I just wanted to note that. But we're going to make changes to this and bring it back. Impact on agricultural resources. In this case, it's not within an agricultural district, not adjacent to any agricultural activity. So impact on aesthetic resources. In this case, what we do note, the property has multiple structures on there now. It's adjacent to the DPW site. They are maintaining the height restrictions, so nothing's exceeding the height restriction. They're meeting the buffer requirements. They have all the setbacks. All the utility lines will be underground. So I think from a visual standpoint, I think the project is okay. I don't think there's a lot more. They're not asking for excessive height and a fence. They're not asking for any of that stuff, so.
Are they within the current code for the kilowatts that this is going to provide?
They're under.
Okay.
They're over, 600 kilowatt hours or more is what drives this.
but
I mean,
all-
they're way over the 600 kilowatt hour.
Okay.
But to be quite honest, that number, 600 kilowatt hours, is a very small amount. You're looking at someone who's going to be doing a house or two or three, and
Yeah.
these facilities are going to be much higher. And that's why you'll see the special exception criteria when we ultimately have to go through it.
Okay,
A lot.
so that'll be part of that process?
Yeah, for sure.
But it doesn't appear they will need variances?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
That's wonderful.
Yep. And then impact on historic and archaeological resources. Again, this is in the archaeological sensitive area. They did a full Phase 1A and 1B with the test pits. They didn't reveal any resources, so no further studies are necessary. Open space and recreation. I just don't believe this site really provides any open space or recreational opportunities on a
Anthony,
scale.
can I just go back for 1 second? So you feel that a 4-foot-high perimeter fence is going to be added?
No, I was going to ask about that, actually.
Okay.
Is that correct, a 4-foot-high fence? I'm asking the applicant, sorry.
Yes.
That doesn't sound right to me, though. 4 feet doesn't sound high enough.
I think the site exception standards calls for a 6-foot fence.
Yeah. So the fence is going to have to be,
So, we had originally proposed a 7-foot fence, and the town code for the ordinance requires a maximum of 6 feet unless you're within the front yard, which the maximum is 4.
yeah, no,
So-
but you're referencing zoning requirements. I think the special exception requirements require a 6-foot fence.
And there'll be no exception for front yard standards on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay attention to the zoning standards for the reduction in the size, because the special exception standards are above and beyond the minimum zoning requirements.
It's really intended for residential.
Okay. So I think our preference, and Gus, please correct me if I'm wrong, is to have the 6-foot fence.
Perfect.
But when we were reading the zoning, it looked like 4-foot fence would be required unless we wanted to zone.
I could-
areas,
I
and
could
we
appro-
didn't want to go down that route.
I could appreciate that. I get a lot of inquiries regarding that section of the code. So we'll note 6 feet in there.
And we can, Gus, and we can confirm we'll do a 6-foot fence.
Yeah, that's good.
Good catch, Tom.
No, that was
I mean,
good.
whatever-
I actually noted it in here because I wanted to.
Whatever the site plan standards say, right?
Yeah,
If
sure.
it says that it should be, have some sort of a, what do you call them? Thing to hide the,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, that's correct. Impact on critical environmental areas. So this property is not located within a New York State DEC designated critical environmental area. Impact on transportation. In this particular case, as it relates to post-construction, this is an unoccupied facility. Everything's done remotely with the exception of obviously some maintenance or any emergency situation. So there's not going to be traffic generated as a result of the project. But I would note, I should add something in here about construction activities and traffic. So,
Good.
so we will add that. Impact on energy.
Yeah, because that is a sensitive area with trucks coming in and out.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. So impact on energy, I did say no in here. In this particular case, the whole purpose of this is to address the town's energy concerns. So I don't,
I was going to question that too, because, you did say no, and when you read that, it's an interesting thing, right? Because you're saying, no, it's not going to use any energy, but every one of those enclosures is going to be air conditioned, so it is using energy.
no question about
It's
it.
taking energy, conserving it, and putting it back out. So it's kind of one of those where, is it going to use energy, or is it technically it does?
So what we should note in here is that, the net benefit perhaps
Right.
may offset the fact that it is going to utilize some energy itself to
So I think that should be,
operate the
yes, it
system.
does use energy, but the net
Right, but-
benefit is,
But saying it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll add
The
that.
net
down.
effect is positive.
What's that?
The net effect is positive.
Correct, correct. Again, impact on noise, odor, and light. I think it's good. With respect to the lighting, they're showing that their fixtures, obviously, they gave the lighting data, which doesn't show any spillover. It's going to be very confined. So the lighting is not really an issue. As it relates to noise, what I have to do is I'll extrapolate from the data that they provided and give some specific information, because I sort of just make a blanket statement there, and I acknowledge that. But what it should say is based on the noise analysis that was prepared by this person.
Exactly.
The decibel numbers are not anticipated to exceed this, which is
Yeah.
consistent with the
Question
code.
to the guy-
I could appreciate.
I know in previous
I-
applications, we had the issue of noise, but that was adjacent to residential parcels, which
Yeah,
is.
but it's an important issue, so that information should go in there as it relates to that. And as for light, again, like I said, it's minimal, and with respect to the odor, I'll get some confirmation information that these don't
And
generate.
the data that came from the applicant over noise, is that actual data for a similar BESS, or is that extrapolated from some sort of testing at the,
I'll get them to answer it, but it seems like that it was an extrapolation, a modeling, I guess, if you will, because they don't always know until they get to the further stages what specific manufacturer or anything.
which was
So
my
it's-
assumption.
So it is a modeling. It
So
is a
the
modeling.
data is not real, it's interpreted?
Yeah, it is modeled. And we could, if you want to ask the applicant to clarify. But, my plan was, to extrapolate what I can regarding the decibel, so we at least put something in here that says,
Agreed, but it's based on a fundamental number that is an extrapolation. It's not reality from another facility.
Right, that's
I
correct.
think that just needs to be said.
And I think, absolutely, Lorraine, that's a good point. So that will get added in there as well. So this was a good discussion with the board to get the information.
This is good.
Listen, as it's pointed out, this is our first project. On this scale, we did a very small one, so it's important that we hash out all the issues.
Very.
So, and I think the applicant appreciates that as well. Impact on, human health. Again, we'll have to relook at this, but they have to give, and they did give the, commissioning plan, the decommissioning plan, the fire safety plan, the operation plans. But with the additional information that we're going to get, we'll have to, we'll verify about the noise and that. It is worth pointing out that the town's legislative intent, which is in here, of developing these regulations was specifically to protect the health, safety, welfare of residents. So, but again, I don't anticipate any large negative impacts on human health. Consistency with community character. This was in this particular case, this site, which is close to the facility, the LIPA facility, underground utility connection, limited residential development around the property.
And big roads nearby.
Big roads nearby. This is probably, a good site for this type of use, but we just obviously have to hone in on the design. But the project itself is consistent with community plans. The town adopted the regulations, they came in, and so we want to, acknowledge, and not just the town's sustainability plan, the comprehensive plan, the state too. The state is, was a driving force behind this, so we should include the state regs in there as well.
And also, this is the first of its kind, I think somewhere that needs to be stated that.
And if you say in here somewhere that it meets all the special exception standard from this new type of use,
Sure.
that, and the standards that were adopted with the assumption that it was going to mitigate any impact on the community.
Yeah, and so we do have to add that about the special exception standards. We do note in there that they meet the zoning and dimensional and certain special exception standards, like the height and underground burying. But so I got to put that in there as well, which is all summarized on the consistency with the community character. In this case, like I said, it's not largely a development, a residential development, like you pointed out, the big roads, the utilities nearby. So the use itself is probably consistent with what's going on in and around the area.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the DPW, and then you have the LIPA substation, so there's already commercial.
Yeah.
We were looking at this for a park and ride several years ago, so.
Yes.
Yeah, well.
Well, this is a better use, I think.
Yes.
Anthony, what relationship does the town have then with LIPA vis-à-vis a facility like this? I mean, I know the applicant would have a relationship with LIPA, but what connection and what authority do we have with LIPA?
In terms of what? They're a contract vendee.
I don't think there's any relation.
What I understand is they're a contract vendee. We don't have privity with them, and they have a quasi jurisdictional kind of territory or authority that we contend with. We coexist, but right now they are the contract vendee of this applicant, no relation to us.
They're a contract vendee.
My understanding is that they are, correct, or no? Or is this a different application? We have an application where there's somebody, where LIPA is the contract vendee.
Oh, we'll ask the applicant. What's the nature of the relationship with LIPA currently? So how is this coming down? Yeah.
LIPA is the transmission owner, and we are the generation owner. And so basically, they will just provide the flow of electrons from our batteries that we store in and out of our facility. The connection. So we basically just that problem.
Can you hear him? I can't hear a word, sorry.
We can't hear it all.
Or maybe, I don't know, John, can you try to take this?
Yeah. So the relationship with them is that they will be the interconnection partner. We will have a contract signed with them to allow the electricity to flow to and from our system. They will not own anything at the system. So they will maintain their own infrastructure, and we will maintain our own on the facility.
So let me distinguish.
Between them.
So this, I know the difference between this and another one we're looking at is that that one involved a subdivision of land in which a substation was being created that was to go to.
Right.
So that was the difference here. So their relationship obviously seems to be
They have a contractual
financial.
relationship. Yeah, it's nothing to do with-
Cleaner.
Along, related to that, the thought occurred to me, the underground conduit that runs from here to, that's going to go under DOT property, it's going to go under the on-ramp and off-ramp there, and connect to DOT property. So does the town have any role in reviewing that or seeing what those plans are?
DOT.
Or engineer, or,
Well, yeah, all the, everything that was given gets reviewed by the town engineer. Now, specifically to this.
You're going under the DOT right-of-way to DOT property.
And
So-
do they need to have new right-of-ways over that?
Well, what's going to happen is this will be referred to the DOT
In
also.
addition, their contract, the LIPA contract with them will probably address those issues because LIPA probably already has an easement.
An easement.
That they're going to be now able to access.
but the town will not be held for any liability in terms of,
The town could always be sued in any event, even if they have nothing to do with it, but we are not privy to the two contracts, the one contract that's between those two parties.
Or the engineering plans, or it's probably directly between you folks and the DOT. Or
That's right.
LIPA and the DOT.
We deal with the engineering on site.
Right.
And it's going to be, and like I said, when we do the referral, we'll see what the DOT comes back with on.
So they will look at the route that underground.
Anything that's, has access off of a state road or a county road or even close to it, we do the referrals.
Right.
So we're going to, to the applicant, so, the planning board wants some additional information. You've heard what they said. I would say that obviously I think, I think the board, supports a project like this, but a project of this size, they're asking for some additional information, that we can incorporate into this analysis to get them at a comfort level, right, for the issuance of a secret determination.
I mean, I think we're sort of starting to set a precedent on how this board should look at applications like this. So I think it would be helpful if we could hold off and get our arms, I mean, this is a great first stab, but we've got a lot of heads here that are giving some other
Yes,
additional
absolutely.
information.
I'm happy to get the information from the
Right.
board. We have
I think the
experts here.
secret form also needs to be revised.
yes, the secret
from
form should be revised, Anthony.
With the
and-
additional information provided in each category as well.
Right.
That is requested.
So are we,
We don't seem to be on an action.
we're not on a deadline, right?
Not
No,
according
there's
to
no
the-
action deadline.
No, we're not on this one.
So
but-
we're going to have to reschedule this?
Yeah, we could do that for September 22nd.
Well,
If we can get the information.
Well, yeah, it's going to
I
be
mean-
really what they could get. What I'm going to do is I'll send the applicant an email outlining all the additional information, that we need.
I think October would be better.
All right, let me get my ducks in a row and make a
Okay.
decision based on, But you understand that, to the applicants there, I know you're anxious, but we got to make sure we get, all the data, so everyone's comfortable with making the secret determination.
Of course, and we're happy to work with you on getting information. All of it is straightforward information, but I think we're comfortable now to respond to and to expand on.
Great.
these people.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm
Do you wanna
definitely
give it in
in
October,
support,
just to
but
have something?
you
And
still
if they
get some
it in before,
information.
you can put them on.
Okay, so there's no action on this? Thank you.
Just so the applicant knows, so our meetings are September 22nd, October 13th, and then October
So
27th,
let's shoot for October so that we're not doing another,
Okay, so I'll get whatever the information that we need from the applicant, I'll get it to us, and then we'll reschedule. Does that sound okay?
Jackie?
All right, thank you. Just so the board knows, this was also on for
Thank you.
completeness, but we got to get through this
Yeah.
before we can complete it, so.
yes, absolutely. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Anthony will be in touch. Okay, Jeff, you have a site disturbance?
Spend some time on that last night.
So we are on item number 5, or number 10, page 53 in your packet. We have an application for site disturbance on a 40,005 square foot property located at 5 Tanager Lane. This is right off the corner of Deerfield Road as you head north on Deerfield. This property is overcleared by 3.3%, where APOD for overlay district requires 50%. The applicant submitted to our office a site plan which calculates the existing clearing at 53.3%. Their re-veg plan, which was also submitted to our office subsequently afterwards.
Can you make that a little bit larger for us?
Sure.
Jeff?
Let me see if I can zoom in for you.
We do not have eagle eyes.
So you'll notice most of the clearing area and proposed vegetation is at the northerly portion of the property off of Tanager Lane. The revegetation plan does meet the requirements to bring this property to conforming clearing amount of, I believe, post-revegetation will be 50, it'll bring the vegetation calculation to an even 50%. After review of the vegetation plan, it does meet the requirements of the planning board and section 33067 for overlay district.
And you were
For the
there,
board
Jeff?
yours.
Did you
Yes,
see
so
it?
I did do a site inspection, verified the clearing limits on the property, which are accurate and consistent with the survey submitted to our office.
Great. Any questions? So can we have a motion to approve the site disturbance application by Tom? Second by Gloria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor. Thank you, Jeff.
I have one more, which is the next item
The
on,
next one, you are Birchwood Lane, number 11.
this is found on page 57 in your packet. It's another site disturbance application. The applicant, here we are. This property is found in David's Path subdivision, 62, Birchwood Lane in Birchampton, adjacent to, which the board might be more familiar with, Vintage Vines subdivision. This property is a 22,202 square foot parcel in the Acro Overlay District, also in the hamlet of Birchampton. The applicant submitted an application for revegetation for an amount of 13,322 square foot of clearing, approximate 66% overclearing, where 60% is permitted. That 6% equals 1,323 square feet of clearing. The applicant submitted an application to our department along with a revegetation plan August 8th, 2022, last revised August 29th, 2022. The revegetation plan itself demonstrates that the revegetation itself will bring the property in compliance where 60% is permitted.
Did you say this was part of Vintage Vine or near Vintage?
Near, it's the, yes, the subdivision adjacent to Vintage Vines, yes.
How is this drought affecting these re-veg plants?
I haven't had a lot. These are actually my two before you. Most of the applicants are requesting that they replant closer into fall, just so that the viability of these plants planting can actually survive and make it through.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's been the request.
That makes sense. It's showing to put stuff in.
Oh, absolutely.
Have it
absolutely.
die.
Albeit there are some that are a little more in a rush than others to, this may be holding up CO on a property, but we have to do what we need to do on our part to kind of get this done correctly, so
Do we ask for a maintenance bond on these re-veg plants?
No, that's why we make them do it, and we expect it. We purposely try to avoid it, so this board doesn't have to get, or this town does not have to get into the business of
Right.
revegetating other people's properties. So,
Right.
we typically make them do it. We don't let any COs get issued unless the plan is done. So.
But we are giving them extensions right now because of the drought, because of those conditions?
If someone asks, yeah.
Yeah, extensions are available upon request.
If they're waiting for a CO and they know that, they're not going to be able to sell a property without a CO.
Most of the applicants are aware of that as a condition to obtain their CO, they would have to complete the revegetation itself, get it inspected by our department, and then from there, they're allowed to move forward. But right now, most folks are electing to do the revegetation in late fall, prior to the first frost, of course. But these are the first initial applications before our office for now.
Before we vote, I had a question.
Sure.
Maybe my own curiosity. Oftentimes when we see clearing like this, you're looking at mature trees that have been knocked down. Do we have any standards in regard to the caliber of tree, the height that need to go into the re-veg?
Correct. Yes, so we do have standards. As part of the application process, the applicant receives a native planting list from me, which then provides specifications for each plant, whether tree, shrub, grass, and your revegetation plan should be designed accordingly to those specifications. So ideally, if someone does bring in a revegetation plan that does not meet those standards, it gets kicked back and another revision is required.
That's good to know.
It's a good question about the
And they're
caliber
using
of the
native
tree, though.
species,
They
too.
don't
100%.
put big
100%
trees in
native
when-
species,
When
yeah.
big ones are taken
Can
away.
never replace the old ones.
That's why the importance of the site visit
Yes.
comes into play. This way we can verify, because at times they do submit preemptively a plan that we review, but not necessarily native plants are utilized. And we do understand there are some plants that are a little bit more expensive than others, but we try to be as cost-effective, depending on the scenario and situation, of course.
Good. Okay, so, no more questions, a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor for Birchwood Lane. Anthony, you're back with 378 Watermill Tab Road.
Kyle on this one. Check, just, Claire's finishing up some stuff downstairs, so she's going to have me finish up my few items.
Okay.
And then she'll come back.
Okay, great.
All right, what do I got?
And I think Janice is coming back with a revised, or is she coming next?
Next week.
Next
meeting.
week, next meeting, okay. Kyle, you can be here, yes. So Anthony, you want to give us
Yeah, so we have here 378 Watermill Road, CR 200 Aquifer Protection Overlay District. That is overcleared. I'm going to let Kyle do the talking because he's so good at explaining things. But basically what this is the idea is the property is overcleared, showed in 2018, and in 2020, the clearing has largely been there. It's been there for a while. This proposal is interesting because it is both a revegetation, and let me do this, partial revegetation, and then also, this map I have up here, which was in to transfer some clearing rights from a property actually 1,400 feet away from the subject site, vacant, fully wooded, So to transfer the development rights from a property, that you can see over here, to this property, and then to revegetate, right, a portion of the property. And I do have a revegetation plan as well.
Yeah, if you could show that.
So are those development rights in the same school district?
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And then a revegetation plan, which you can see,
Wow.
will cover.
So
This
does,
is sort of a unique situation. That's why I have Kyle here today, actually. It's
Yeah.
a little bit different.
Yeah, we can go over that plat, and it looks a little more drastic than it is, and there was that question about the standards for trees. It's actually, there's no trees that were taken down, it's all ground cover.
Right,
And the standard for a tree is 2-inch caliber or 10 feet.
thank you.
You wanna know.
2-inch
thanks.
caliber.
At
2-inch
10,
At 10 feet.
At 10 feet.
Okay, Kyle Collins, KPC Planning, 16 Library Avenue, West Hampton Beach, here on behalf of the applicant, Scott Tesser, who's the owner of the property at 378 Watermill Town Road. And I'd just like to give a little history on how this happened. Mr. Tesser purchased the property in June 18th of 2018. Prior to doing that, and as part of his due diligence, and probably at the recommendation of his attorney, he requested the previous owner to get a CO. One of the specific issue, an updated CO, to make sure all the property, but also to make sure, because he realized it was in the APOD, that the clearing complied. So, as part of that condition of the contract, the previous owner did get an updated CO. It was June 13th of 2018, and he closes, and it shows it's 14.8% in compliance with the 15%. Showed a clearing of 29,875 square feet, which complied. 5 days later, he closes on the property. 6 months later, he comes to the building department to put in a pool house. In preparation of that, he gets a survey from another surveyor, and it turns out it's not 14.8, it's over 20% cleared. As a result of finding that out, and the building department says, you have a problem, you can't submit an application because you're over cleared, resulted in a lawsuit with the previous owner as well as the surveyor. That lawsuit has subsequently settled. It took a number of years, and that's why you're back before this board. So I just want to point that out. This wasn't a guy who came in here and said, I'm clearing this place, I don't, you know.
Right.
So it's just a little background. So he's wants to clear this up because he absolutely wants to put in his pool house. Some of the things, and if you'll see on that aerial photograph, there's a portion up in the north, which I think probably happened with the previous surveyor, thought that there was vegetation in there, but it's not native vegetation. It's ground cover, it's Pachysandra, which is not native,
No.
and therefore it's considered clearing.
blueberries.
Yeah, Anthony, if you could put up, if you can put up that re-veg plan.
Yep.
It looks a little drastic, but all the stuff in that re-veg plan are native plantings. It's to do the ground cover in terms of low bush blueberries,
Yep.
those types of things, and additional ground cover in terms of some wintergreen. So everything that's appropriate for this area of Southampton.
So it's a lot, but you have to do it to
It's
comply.
it's a lot. So I can break down the numbers. The numbers, so the actual clearing is actually 48,104 square feet of ground cover that has been cleared, which comes out to 23.9%. We're only 30,179 square feet, or 15.8 is permitted. So we have overcleared of
Almost double.
17,925 square feet. So the proposal is to purchase, if you look at the 11 by 17, shows the sending and the receiving. The sending site is entitled to 10,236 square feet. And then the proposal is to revegetate 7,690, which would come out to basically 14.99%, get you under the 15%.
Does the applicant own this?
He does not yet. He's
would
in
have to-
contract,
would
but
have-
subject to
you would
you
have to
guys
purchase.
saying he's willing to go. He's already in contract with them, but obviously, he's not going to buy it unless he knows he could.
Where is it, Kyle?
Which,
Is it-
the sending site?
Sending.
It's part of the Ocean View Parkway, Ocean View Park, old file map. Actually, it's surrounded by town open space, so it's perfect. It's kind of a donut hole that it can be included. And he is proposing, once the development rights are taken off, instead of doing an easement, he's just going to donate it to the town.
Dennis, did you have a question?
Yeah, do we have a development section for that map?
It's further
That was
to,
the map
yeah.
Gaza was in, wasn't it the map Gaza was in?
Yes.
Yeah, it's further to the north. This is
Closer to Noyak?
southern portion of it. Correct.
This is the southern portion.
Yeah, this is.
So was this the sending parcel anyway?
Yeah, it definitely was not a parcel that was looked to be developed as part of the redevelopment section.
Well, if it's surrounded by
Yeah.
public lands, and there's
Do
obviously.
you want that verified, Dennis?
Well,
That map?
I'm just thinking out loud here, it's a setting parcel, it's gonna be, it's not gonna be developed anyway.
Right. If it's specified as, is it part of
Right,
an
but we
old file
still want the
map?
development rights purchased and expired and used.
Yes, and the board's done this before, with utilizing old file maps. I've done it myself.
So what happens to the development right on that, the development right on that, under that parcel?
So
Right now, it's still intact.
But it would be,
It could be landed and somebody else could use it to develop.
Yes.
Instead,
Kyle, are you gonna sever, are you gonna lift the development right? How?
No, we're only lifting the clearing rights to account for the overclearing on the subject property. Once the clearing rights are restricted, we're going to donate the underlying land to the town.
But is there an underlying
The development
development
right intact?
right on this as well as a clearing?
Well,
Could be a full
I don't know, you want to get into the bundle of rights associated
Yeah, no,
with it? I mean,
no, definitely not. It's not going to be a full development right. For all intents and purposes, it's not going to be developed and will be compensated
Yeah.
in terms of a purchase, and it will land.
correct.
Right now it has a fractional development right. Is that gonna be
Correct.
retained or is that gonna be donated along with the fee title?
It's going to be donated with the fee title,
But it's not going to.
minus the clearing rights.
Minus the clearing rights. It's not going to be a full development right.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah,
Right, it's a fractional development right.
yeah.
so it should be
So-
less expensive than it would be if they wanted to use the whole thing for
For
development.
Yes.
Good, Dennis, okay?
Okay.
So it's interesting, because I think a lot of times we get these development rights, Joe Gaza does it, they all do it, they piece them together so they could build a house. So here, I think, in my opinion, a benefit of using development rights like this is that we're taking some of the clearing to rectify a clearing situation, but we're never going to get another septic system or a house as a
On
result
that
of it.
parcel.
speculating.
Yeah.
Yes.
but you're going to have to calculate a price
Yes.
out of that, which is,
Yeah, that's
That's-
between
that's
my
good for
client and the seller.
yeah, and what we get residually.
Exactly.
If we have an active role in
Yeah.
maintaining for us.
Now, I brought this
Yeah,
to the board today
we're just
for
gonna
also,
give you a
sorry.
deed once
I know,
the,
like, we got to know what we're getting.
yeah.
I brought it to the board today, not for an immediate approval, to discuss, to make sure that, you know.
Good discussion.
Any questions? I think
And
that's.
the re-veg plan you've submitted,
Yeah, it's,
That's good, I'm glad you said about the trees, because my first question was, where are the trees in the plan? But all the trees were left.
all the trees are there. Actually, originally, when I started this project, I did go out with Jackie Fenlon had it, and she verified the clearing limits and those types of things. That's how I started the process, but, so,
Okay, good. So just discussion.
that's it.
Thank you, Kyle, for these materials.
Thank you. No
It's
problem.
very helpful, and we don't often get them.
No problem. Whoops.
Give them back to Kyle.
Okay, so,
I'm just gonna finish up my stuff.
Well, I don't, you may.
so that's just a
I don't know if you want to
discussion.
have more.
You can recycle them.
Yes.
Anthony, you've got,
Right.
Coastal Vision, 1 and 2, 14 and 15, I'll quickly go through the board here.
what about Canal Southampton?
Well, that was on for completeness, that's the same as battery status.
Yeah, that was,
I'm sorry, pages 68, and
there was no action on that because that was the.
no action on that last one.
No, no action
Jackie's
on that.
asking about
I'm asking about 13.
No action on that one.
No
We
action.
Gotta send them more.
And then Coastal Vision?
So Coastal Vision 1 and 2, but I'll do them separately. So East Quogue, here are the properties up on the screen here. The Coastal Vision 1 is the one highlighted. One to the east is Coastal Vision 2. You can see to the west is the mobile home park in East Quogue, that the planning board actually has a pending application to relocate some of those units. So this is to sort of give you a little geographic
68.
location where it is in relation to other projects. So, so Coastal Vision 1 and 2, two applications. I'll just do them each separately. They're both in the, what zoning are we here? I believe it's R20. R20, they're not in the aquifer. There are actually no overlay districts here. They're not in the archaeological. So on Coastal Vision 1, just so you can see, right here to the west, there's a paper road, which is, you'll see on the maps, proposed to be abandoned. In between the two properties, also a paper road, which is proposed to be abandoned. And then there's Central Avenue all the way to the east here, which is going to remain open. It currently is open. So the two subdivisions in question involved.
Tell us what's across the road.
So right across the street is the mobile home park, right next to it and across the street. And I believe, I don't remember what this is, but this could be some of the land associated with Lewis Road. I don't remember actually, but it's I think it's just all old file maps and stuff like that. So there's really no development to the north. But
And next to it is a vacant parcel?
this property is being subdivided, is Coastal Vision 1, and then this property is Coastal Vision 2.
And to the north is
And
town property?
I believe this is town property up here.
Can you just scroll up the map so we can get a better feel for?
I can't, because
Oh, you
this is
can't.
actually PDF,
Okay.
but I certainly can. Hold on one second, just bear with me.
Are you representing the application?
Yes, both of
Come and sit.
Oh, hold on, sorry.
Just identify yourself.
Sure. Randall Whiteborough, 144 West Main Street, Bay Shore, New York, 11706.
Thank you, Randy. What's across the street? What is
So across the street, that was all owned by the estate of William Swan for the most part, who has since sold that to the Hills Discovery Land Company.
Okay.
So that'll be
Yeah, so that's
sold
part of-
to the
That's what I was trying-
PRD.
Oh, it is all those pieces for the
Yep.
Lewis Road, there you go. So I was
Yep.
right the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's all
This
Old
is-
Country Road, so that
Yeah.
is off.
Yeah.
This is the last of the estate of William Swan Holdings. So really just coming in with a straight subdivision, nothing fancy. We've provided numerous maps and really are open to design.
Let me just go show real.
Let Anthony.
Yeah, let me show real quick. So, on that first one, so they show a standard plan, a yield map, and this accounts for, and obviously we're going to go through this in the pre-app report, but it accounts for the road abandonment. So let's just, be clear that this is this. This map shows for this particular property a yield of 7 lots. They also showed a second yield map that shows 6 lots, and what they did here was this one accounts for a park on site. So what the board usually does is, because the code accounts for on-site park on yield maps, but if the board isn't going to require an on-site park as part of the subdivision, in other words, we take the fees in instead, then we don't take it out of the yield. So that's why I had them show both maps, so that way we could ultimately make that determination. So it's, 6 or 7, depending on...
What about a cluster?
Well, we're going to get to that. Then remember, 6 or 7, the town code also requires a density incentive of 10% to account for affordable housing. So if you have a yield of 7, then it's going to be 8 lots. If you have a yield of 6, then it's 7 lots. The applicant then submitted just a standard plan based on a yield of 7 lots, showing the 8th lot. This is a standard plan to show that they would accommodate
Affordable unit.
They also provided a cluster plan. You did this based on 6 lots, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they did a cluster plan based on 6 lots here. They just show the open space around the railroad, but they did provide a cluster plan for that.
They also provided a cluster plan for 8 lots. In other words, if the yield was 7 and they get the extra lot, then they show a cluster plan with 25% open space and 8 lots. There's going to be a lot of discussion about this, obviously, I know. So that was the one. And then just real quick, the one next to it is very similar.
Excuse me, can I ask, are these properties going to merge, or are they being developed and owned separately?
Owned separately.
They're owned separately, but what I would say, Randy, is that
Open
the
discussion.
code, you absolutely, under the code, could establish a yield for each lot of property separately, because the code allows for that. However, when looking at a cluster plan and everything, we would look at it as one subdivision, because we're going to take all the lots and cluster them in one location. So I think ultimately, you're just looking at one subdivision map, but when you're coming in trying to establish yield and get comments and the pre-application, we would do two properties
Got it.
separately. And then just looking at the second one for that, they did something similar. They show a yield of, in this case, 11 lots. And then they did one with the park, which brings it down to 10. So again, depending on how we design this subdivision. And then again, they did a cluster plan with 10 lots, and then a cluster plan with a density incentive for the affordable, sort of just showing a minimum of 25% open space. We actually had deemed this incomplete a while back. I have been working with Randy. We have meetings to try to get some maps for everyone to look at. But what's interesting is I think the applicant's very open to design suggestions. So what I was going to say is, I'll recommend deeming the application complete, scheduling the hearing for October 13th, doing our referral, seeing what comes back, and then seeing what kind of design, alternatives we could ultimately look at.
It's up to you. Pen to paper.
What's the total size of that property?
The total acreage is, how the heck did I not put that in here?
4.9 and 3.
We call it 10.
6.5 and 4 and 10. Okay.
Just about 10.
You've had it in there.
I did.
Yeah,
I missed it.
3.8 in the verbiage.
And the zoning is,
R20.
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 Yeah.
I was trying to find it quick and I.
Fairly,
It's-
intense, dense,
Yeah,
zoning
it's
designation.
Quag.
Okay.
So I would recommend deeming them, actually, both of the applications, number 14 and 15, complete, and scheduling the hearing for the 6th.
Anthony, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's on R20, what groundwater zone is that in? Do they need flow to get that density in that groundwater zone? That's north of the highway.
Why don't we just pull it up?
Pull it up.
Yeah.
Hold on. Bear with me.
Your legend.
Let's see here, groundwater management zones. It's here somewhere. Is it down low, Claire?
Ooh, it's like middle, and you had it.
They're groundwater management zone. So this is 4.
So, yeah, it's half acre.
It's half acre, Dennis.
Dennis,
Is half acre, they're in 4?
yes.
Okay, because the boundary line is very close.
It's right there. It's right to the north.
Hence,
Right,
that's high variance.
Okay, so, and they have public water, correct?
They have public water.
Okay.
Yep. And by the way, Dennis, you raise a good point. Any density incentive may require, for the affordable, some flow anyway. The health department doesn't acknowledge the density incentive, so we may find ourselves doing some flow to get any affordable here. So, all right, good. So I would recommend deeming them complete and scheduling the hearing for the 13th.
For when?
October 13th.
October 13th.
Good. All right, thank you. It's good seeing you all. Have a good afternoon. Good luck later.
You need to vote?
Hi, Dennis.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, I think so.
You didn't vote, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't vote.
We need.
Yes, it's a motion to deem it complete and schedule a public hearing for October
Motion.
13th. Motion by Craig,
second.
second by George, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
I voted on.
7 in favor.
Did we do both?
You
Oh,
did.
you want two, not
Yeah.
together, okay. For this Coastal Vision 2, a motion to deem it complete and schedule a
Motion.
public hearing for October 13th. Motion by Gloria and second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor. Thanks.
Thank you. Number 16, 325 Rose Hill. The board might recall, this is the convent house that we did the covenant amendment on.
Yes.
The convent house is going away. They did the covenant amendment. They've come in with a two-lot subdivision, which they show here, but they don't have health department. They're missing stuff, so the application's incomplete.
So motion to deem this incomplete.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, second by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor, incomplete.
And then Gloria will eventually, when we're done with the meeting, we'll have two maps to be signed.
I think
for two
she
projects.
signed them.
It's all signed.
They're all signed, so we're acknowledging 17.
You had everything ready for me, and
no.
everything was very neat and easy to sign, so thank you.
Well, we have two extensions first, but let's acknowledge the signatures, which are,
The Woods at Hampton Bays and Fisher Organization.
okay. So those are acknowledged. And what about the extensions? Claire, you have two extensions?
Two extensions. The first one is number 17 on page 85, and that's a 90-day extension for the submission of maps for the land law modification.
Okay, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria. Second by George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
And the Sabonic Cottage is an extension of the pre-submission reports. This is the demolishing the single-family residence and the construction of a building for a special trade contractor use on Shortland Road.
Okay, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, second by Kate, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Great.
Okay, so the signed plans are 19 and 20. Okay, you've got it.
Need a motion to go into closed session.
Do I close out and then go into?
You can move to into closed session.
Okay, motion to go into closed session by?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, and second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. We are in closed session.